This suit, where did it come from? I feel fast, I feel strong, I feel good.
After playing Spider-Man 2, which for years I had considered that to be my favorite Spider-Man game of all time, I moved on to the final game in the Raimi trilogy, Spider-Man 3. Not having played this game in many years, I didn't remember much, but was expecting it to be much worse than 2, but to my surprise, it was actually pretty good. Unlike Spider-Man 2, the third movie in the Spider-Man trilogy is known to be the worst, so the story for this game wasn't going to be much better. Similar to the other games, we make our way slowly through the events of the movie with a bunch of padding thrown in between to make the game longer. What helps with this story is the solid voice acting, as there are more voice actors that voice their movie characters than in the previous games. Tobey sounded the best he ever has, and you could tell by the dialogue that he put more effort into his lines, as the quips and jokes sounded more authentic than they did before.
I am so sick of you mouth-breathing knuckle draggers. You wouldn't know power if it kicked you in the ass, and you sure as hell wouldn't know what to do with it if you got it. But hey, you think you're tough guys? In that case, show me what you got.
Having J.K. Simmons actually voice J. Jonah Jameson made all the Daily Bugle scenes that much better, especially since you have to complete several photo missions to progress the game.
Luke Carlisle, you're the Mad Bomber? But you're one of the richest businessmen in the city.
It's worth noting that these story beats are not rendered cutscenes, as each scene is in-game and uses the same character models that you see in the normal gameplay. This wasn't the case in Spider-Man 2, as some of the important moments had those high-quality cutscenes, but in this game, I don't think it was necessary. With this title being on the PlayStation 3, the jump in graphics made a big difference, making everything in the game look better than anything we had seen before. For the most part, it does a good job at staying true to what happened in the film, as we see memorable moments like the Harry vs. Peter fight in the beginning, Black Suit Spider-Man vs. Sandman, and the suit being passed from Peter to Eddie. The biggest difference in the story in the game versus the movie is that somehow this game is darker. If you've seen the movie, then you know that the tone is already darker than the last movie, but this game takes it a step further. So in the movie, we know that Sandman is trying to get money so he can get the medicine he needs to save his daughter, but his family is poor, so he has to acquire the money by any means necessary. However, in the game, his daughter isn't even mentioned until we see Eddie confront Sandman, asking for help with killing Spider-Man. In this scene, Eddie blackmails Sandman by hanging his daughter from a tree and threatens to kill her if he doesn't help. A switch up from the movie, but one that makes his game darker than the film. Also, how they killed Venom after the final battle is just gruesome. Instead of him dying in the explosion, this happens instead. Overall, the story is missing some parts from the movie, but it included enough to make it worth at least one playthrough. The gameplay is where this game differs the most from the past Spider-Man games. First off, the web swinging is the same from Spider-Man 2, but for some reason the actual swing speed was slowed down. Even with the speed boost you get later on, it's not nearly as fast as it was before. There's so much more that was fleshed out in the last game that was very bare bones in this third installment. To progress the game, you have to complete missions that are located around the city that are represented by different colored circles. What each color represents, they don't tell you. What missions or requirements do you need to complete to unlock the next story mission? The game doesn't tell you. The game just has a big map with a bunch of stuff littered across it, and you're just supposed to figure it out. Playing through this had me confused because in the previous games, it told you exactly what you needed to do in order to move on to the next chapter or unlock the next story mission. If you've been playing games for years, then you could have guessed that all you need to do to finish the game is to complete every mission, regardless if they're story related or not. The best way to figure out what to do is by opening up your camera and looking at the mission tab to see what your objective is. This seemed to work, but I only use this during the actual missions, so it really depends on the player in regards to how helpful it really is. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the menus and layout of the game feels too bare bones. There isn't enough detail in the menus and other screens to help enhance the gameplay experience and help you find what you're looking for. In regards to the combat, this is one of the brighter areas of the game, as it lines up with the previous titles with you being able to perform a long list of combos by inputting a certain button combination. Like before, you can open the pause menu and find the combo list to perform the exact moves that you prefer to use in combat. The combat feels fast and it's easy to dodge attacks from enemies, as by pressing L1 you can slow down time, dodge the attack, and then press square to perform a counterattack. Knowing when to dodge was important because if you just spammed attacks, then the enemies would perform their own attacks and go right through your punches and kicks. After playing with both suits, the combat while wearing the black suit is so much better than the red one. When using the black suit, you can perform certain combos that you can't use when wearing the red. But the best aspect of using the suit is the rage mode, where you become enraged and gain a temporary boost in damage, which helps out in almost every combat scenario. If you perform a super attack while in rage mode, the damage that you cause is staggering in comparison to the damage you inflict while in the red suit. When you have to go back to the red suit towards the end of the game, I recognized the difference in combat immediately. What I liked about this game was how ambitious the mission structure was. From the beginning of the game, each mission felt different and introduced new mechanics that weren't present in the older games. As you traverse through each location, you would face these environmental set pieces that you could get through by completing QuickTime events that required you to press certain buttons to finish the scene. Since this game was on PS3 and 360, these moments were well done and gave the game a more cinematic feel, unlike anything we had seen prior. These QTE segments helped enhance the battles we already knew about, making them feel closer to the actual movie than they ever have before. The boss fights are a lot more exciting and have multiple phases that are split up by missions or small segments. What's great is that the boss fights feel like they lean into the best abilities of each villain. Like in the Kraven fight, in his second phase, he uses the powers from different animals that influence his attack moves for each part of the fight. This is just one example, but the boss fights feel separate from one another and help keep the gameplay fresh from the same loop of completing activities and random events that occur throughout the city. For the final boss fight, you have a segment where you play as Harry and have to destroy the Mega Sandman, but to control Harry you have to use the Z-axis on your controller to move Harry in the direction you want to go. I understand that at the time, putting motion through your controller was the latest gimmick, but it didn't fit this fight at all. I like the idea, but it would have been easier to just move him with the analog sticks. The missions outside the main story ones are divided up by different types of gangs, each leading back to Kingpin, which was a great fight. But one of these groups used tons of bombs that you had to disarm to save buildings from exploding. These puzzle minigames were harder than they looked, as it required you to press buttons at the right time, move electrical currents to the right area, and rapidly press multiple buttons to unlock inner pieces. This seems minute on the surface, but I thought this game did a great job at making it feel like you were really stopping a bomb from detonating, a small gameplay mechanic that helps differentiate it from all the other stuff. There are additional activities that you can do when you're not going through the main missions that included races, combat trials, and more. These are pretty similar to the last game and aren't required to unlock additional missions that will progress the story, but if you want a nice change up from doing nothing but missions, these are sure to keep you entertained. This gameplay does some things better than before, but there's too much that feels like it needed some more thought put into it. It makes no sense why there was aspects that were included in Spider-Man 2 that weren't present in this game. It gives off the impression that the devs intentionally left it out or watered the gameplay down instead of enhancing what was already there and making it better. Regardless, the gameplay is fun enough to keep you coming back to each mission. The graphics from the PS2 games to the PS3 help make this game look better than it ever has. With the updated graphics, the characters actually resemble their movie counterparts more than they did before. The models don't look the greatest, as most of them have these giant bug eyes that pop out of their face, but they're a huge improvement from the blurry models in the older titles. Even the NPCs that you see on the streets and in the cutscenes look more realistic, helping add to the immersion of the game. The buildings look better, but it's not as big of a jump. But inside each environment is where you can see the biggest difference. Whether you're in the sewers or in the city streets, each area looks better and pops off the screen, creating unique environments that align with specific villains or missions. Seeing the graphics make me wish that we got a Spider-Man 4, because the next game that would've came out could have been the best looking Spider-Man game out of all the Raimi films. Spider-Man 3 is a solid experience that could have been so much better. The game was fun, but there was too much that wasn't fleshed out like the previous game. Because of this, the game feels a bit rushed, like it needed another year of development, but because they wanted to drop this around the time frame of the movie, they rushed it out. For those reasons, I'm going to give this game a 7.5. I would say give this game a try if you enjoyed the previous games, but be ready for a little bit of confusion and some frustrating gameplay sections. What did you think about Spider-Man 3? Where would you rank this among your favorite Spider-Man games? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, you think you're smart, buddy? Well, think again. I hit a bunch of cameras around here, and now I have an even better shot than I was planning. You punching me in the jaw and taking my camera. So thanks.